Yes folks, welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. Wanted to bring you a quick video reacting to Celtic's two friendlies in Australia this week. We've obviously not had the chance to bring you full-time reaction as normal, but after all, they are friendlies out in Australia. The kick-off times are really difficult. Myself and the guys balancing full-time jobs as well, so no opportunity to bring you full-time reaction straight after the games. But I'm here on a Sunday morning to bring you my brief reaction to both results. The trip to Australia in general, and we'll talk about some other things that have come up this week in the world of Celtic just before the World Cup starts. Today, obviously, that is the last Celtic game, that one against Everton. Last game until the 17th of December now, and we're back to league duty at Pittodrie against Aberdeen. So we're going to have a wee break now without Celtic. We'll try and keep some videos coming to you during that time. But the game last night, from what I've seen of it, watched it back this morning, really good, I thought, in terms of a performance, particularly in the first half. I thought we dominated the game pretty much. Some good individual performances. Everton had quite a strong team out, really. I think they've maybe got one or two players away to the World Cup. Jordan Pickford, the most notable one, but still a strong team. They had Mina, Decore, Anthony Gordon was playing, Demarai Gray as well, so it was a relatively strong Everton team. And I thought we dominated, and again, similar story, I suppose, coming up against numerous teams this season where we created plenty of chances to win the game. Kyogo has a great chance, he doesn't really get anything on. Begovic makes a save, I think it's Abada that squares it across the face of the goal. Jota hits the bar with a free kick, and Abada misses a glorious chance with 2 minutes left to win the game in 90 minutes as well. So I think plenty of encouraging signs in terms of performance. There's no point in micro-analysing these games, particularly because they are friendlies. They're in the middle of the season. They're on the other side of the planet for the players. They've done a lot of travelling recently. We talked before we finished up in the post-match pint after Ross County about the number of games the team have played in the space of 40 days, and then they've had to basically go straight to Australia and play in another 2 games, which, again, from what I've seen of both games, watching them back, the tempo was pretty high. They're pretty decent. In terms of what you would expect from a friendly. Sydney FC only 6 games into their season, so they're in good shape. And then Everton, obviously, decent quality opposition, some really good players in their side, so it was decent run-outs for the team, but I don't think there's too much to be read into in terms of analysing everything. I think, as I say, that the performance against Everton last night was encouraging. We should have won it on the balance of playing 90 minutes, and then, of course, Celtic lose the penalty shootout. Celtic were always going to lose the penalty shootout. 4-2. Giakoumakis and Hatate missing for Celtic. Giakoumakis missed the target, absolutely blazed it over. Hatate hit the post. I'm sure most of you have seen it. So, the penalty woes continue. I think we've missed a couple of penalties recently. Giakoumakis has now missed 3, and he's only been at the club for about a year. But I've been thinking, and I've put a poll up on Twitter, who is the best penalty taker you've ever seen in a Celtic jersey? Because if I think back through my whole life watching Celtic so far, I've never really been super confident in anybody taking a penalty. It seems to be something the club's just struggled with my whole life watching them. Henrik Larsson, who's the best player I've ever seen, and up there is one of the best Celtic players ever. Even he missed a few high profile penalties as well, so interested to get people's thoughts on that, people with different eras. Comment in the comment section below with whoever you think in your lifetime watching Celtic, who's the best penalty taker, who did you feel most confident in? Because as I say, the last 20 odd year I've spent watching Celtic, I've never really felt confident that somebody would put 9 out of 10 penalties away. It seems like an area we've always had problems in. So that obviously concludes the 2 games in Australia. We lost during the week to Sydney FC. Again, having watched that game back, with plenty of chances to possibly win it and certainly not lose it, but Sydney looked good, to be fair to them. As I say, 6 games into their season, they look relatively sharp. They scored 2 good goals. Got a decent players in their team. Robert Mak, who we know from Slovakia, really decent striker over the years. And I think their winning goal, was it the boy Burgess that scored it? Left foot, cutting in, top corner, absolutely brilliant finish. It looked like he had a similar sort of stance to Tom Rogic. Tall, a bit languid, but decent on the ball. Left-sided as well, with a brilliant finish. And for us, travelling to Australia off the back of that intense fixture schedule we've had in the last 30-40 days, it's hard to expect too much of the players. And in that game, in contrast to Everton, the lineup against Everton last night was pretty much full strength without the guys that are away to the World Cup. So the team against Sydney was changed up a little bit, like Bernabe starting with Ideguchi and Abelkad starting in midfield as well. So that was a more second string lineup, if you like. I know lots of players were involved over the course of the 90 minutes, but I don't think we can be too hard on the team. After all, it is friendlies. They've travelled a long, long way. And I know the main benefit of this trip was for Ange to take Celtic to Australia and let the following in Australia see the club firsthand, get to some games and see Ange leading Celtic. We know that Celtic's got a massive support over there. Even just the viewers on Celtic Fans TV from Australia, their support has been brilliant since Ange joined the club. It's great for them to get to see the team. I've seen so many brilliant videos. It looked like a great atmosphere over there. Brilliant weather, obviously. It looked like everybody was having a good time. But I do think it's a lot to ask of the players off the back of that fixture congestion that we've just come through at that level in the Champions League and the likes, and then travel to Australia straight off the back of that and play another 2 games. It is a lot to demand of the players, and hopefully there's no negative outcomes from that. I know O'Reilly went off last night holding his hamstring. I don't think it looked really worrying, but you hope there's no niggles there that end up keeping anyone out when we come back to play competitively against Aberdeen on the 17th of December, because that would be a real disappointment. I think the load the players have had to go through, particularly the likes of O'Reilly and Hatate, who have played almost every minute in midfield to play another game last night against Everton. Really difficult for them, and as I say, I just hope there's no lasting injuries or knocks from it. In other news at the start of this week, there was speculation about Josip Juranovic's future after contract negotiations are said to have stalled. I think we know that Juranovic, given he's 28 in the summer, there was speculation around Chelsea, around Atletico Madrid in the summer as well, just past, and I think he's not quite been at the levels we've seen last season so far. So could he be the first player of the Postecoglou era that the club cash in on, if you like? He is, of course, at the World Cup with Croatia. If he has a great tournament, I'm sure the club could command a high fee. We only bought him for, I think it was £2.5 million from Legia Warsaw last summer. So I think if he's a good tournament, I think January could be the window that we see Josip Juranovic leaving. And I think that feels kind of inevitable. I don't think anyone will be really shocked if he is to leave. I think you get a feel around a player. He was brilliant last season when he came in, but I think that speculation in the summer would have turned his head, and you could say it's only natural because he's at that stage of his career where he can't really wait 2 or 3 years to get a big move, because he is in his peak years, 28 as I say in the summer. So I think it's natural that he might move on relatively soon. And listen, that's what the club have to do. We saw the financial results recently. Swiss Ramble did a great thread about them on Twitter, but we are heavily relying on that player trading model, and it's worked really well for us. And all of the biggest fees we've commanded have come in the last 5 or 6 years. The likes of Tierney, the likes of Dembele, the likes of Edouard, Aya, they've all come in the last 5 or 6 years. And I think for the club to be sustainable and for the club to reinvest money in bringing in new players, we have to sell at the right time. That's a challenge. Obviously, you don't want to lose your best players at any time, but Celtic can't keep these players if there's interest and there's bids for likes of £15-20 million plus. That's too good for Celtic to turn down, and the players want to go and play at a higher level. We should be used to this by now, but I think Juranovic might be one that we see leave sooner rather than later. And as I say, if Ange can get some money to reinvest, he's done brilliantly in terms of recruitment so far, and the recruitment team since Ange came in have been greatly improved. So we're doing good work in terms of recruitment, but that will be the first challenge, I suppose, to sell one of our best players and then replace them and move forward. That's the planning the club has to get right, and it was encouraging, I think, before the break there to hear Ange say that the planning was all done for January, and this World Cup break would actually allow them to look ahead to next summer. That's the kind of planning I think the football club should be doing in terms of recruitment, and that will be tested if we are to lose a top player in Juranovic in terms of replacing him and trying to make that as seamless as possible and ensuring that there's not a dip in performances on the pitch due to that. So there you go, that's a quick Sunday video for you. Just bring my brief reaction to both friendlies out in Australia. That's the games finished now until the 17th of December. We'll be back during that time throughout the World Cup with maybe some non-match related content. I know there's a lot of things people would like to see us discuss, and we'll try and roll them out over the next few weeks to give you your Celtic fix while the World Cup is on. So there you go, like this video, comment with your own thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you next week. Cheers.